Hello everyone, Edain here and welcome back to the Edain Mod. Today I'm going to be talking about 7 vanilla powers that are still very much the same as they were back in the good old days of BFME 2 Rise of the Witch King. And I'm going to give you my opinions on what can be done to them to make them better. Because I think it's something that I can quite openly talk about. It's something that probably a lot of people have been thinking about. A lot of powers in a lot of different faction skill trees I often just overlook because I don't need them or they don't revolve around my particular playstyle. But I feel like just giving these vanilla powers a little bit of extra love might make them more appealing and make people's own playstyles change around them. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first power I want to talk about is the Horn of Gondor, and by an extent the Rallying Call power for the Dwarves. But I'm going to focus mainly on Gondor here, just because of the way that it is just a attack bonus and fear resistance. But I feel like it can be changed to have two different select abilities. Similar to Radagast the Brown, you use one, it puts them both on cooldown. So you can either go for the basic damage of the Horn of Gondor, or you can try something new and instead use the Horn of Gondor Inspiring Call for a very brief amount of time, so for maybe like 2 unit summons around that amount of time, you get faster recruitment. Just something to help you in the early game, because in a lot of Gondor games I've often just moved around, got all my resource buildings built up, but this might give you a reason to be more of an aggressive start where you actually have more soldiers on the field because you've invested in, instead of having more damage straight away, in just making more recruitment. It can also work on taking out creeps because you get the pikemen faster. It's just something to keep in mind that it is a fort that maybe just spicing it up can make it better. Next on my list, I want to talk about the Palantir, or Visions of the Palantir, or I was going to call it Palantir of Saruman. Anyway, what it does, very big area of effects to just view the area unrestrained. Pretty good power, but in other patches for vanilla BFME 2, they actually gave it a bonus speed advantage. So that does make sense because it's one of your starting powers. Have your Urukai, most of your Uruk scouts, move a little bit faster. Have them going to where you want them to go a little bit faster, instead of just going and seeing the enemy base and being like, okay, that's what the enemy's got. You can be like, okay, I'm going to put it here. I'm now going to move my troops through here. They're now moving through here faster. And then the effect can be like heroic statues, where it persists a little bit afterwards. Just to give something back to this power, because I feel like the speed was actually a really nice advantage in vanilla when they put it in the patches. So I feel like if the Edain team could put that in, why not? It's just an advantage. Win-win. Isengard gets something good for once. Next power I want to talk about is Cloudbreak, which is very much the same as it has always been. Remove all other effects and then stun enemy units. It's good. It does its job well. But I think a little something extra could always just spice it up, because this is Rohan after all. Rohan is all about the red sun rising, the march of the Rohirrim. It's got to have some more theme to it, and I think a bonus movement speed increase and reduction in revenge damage could be really nice. Just give everyone that extra push. You hear some inspiring talk from Theoden, and then you just want to rush into battle. I feel like that would be really nice, and the enemies are just in awe and fear of what Rohan is about to unleash. I think it'd be really nice if something like that existed. Another really good power that could do just a little bit of extra spice, Gondorian architecture, or as we all know it from BFME 2 Rebuild, has now only been ported into Gondor. Obviously with Edain, it got taken out from the dwarves. But still really good, decent range, can heal buildings up to full from next to nothing, and is a really good stalling tool. So why not, in a later stage of the game, make it even more of a stalling tool? I'm taking my inspiration here from what they've done with Enlargers with Miravor, where you get a certain upgrade and then it just becomes stronger. So why not have the Stoneworker upgrade like siege materials, for example, why not also have it that while you have Gondorian architecture, when you use it, it then gives extra armor to every building that's just been rebuilt, and it's got like a shining effect to kind of show that it is made from pristine Gondorian stone, kind of thing. I think that'd be a really nice idea. Just give you more tools in your kit, and it makes a power that is already a staple for Battle for Middle-earth just a little bit more fun to use, and a hell of a lot more difficult to deal with for every enemy you want to deal with. Now this change is quite a big one. Arrowstorm / Arrow Volley for Lothlorien and Arnor technically as well are a very interesting power that has existed since BFME 2. You place it down, after a few seconds you see an arrow shoot down, and then after a few more seconds you hear the volley go out and it kills pretty much anything in the volley. What I want to think about is how it can be improved, and I'm actually going to take some inspiration from another power that the Edain team has made, which is a thing on top of the power, the Dragon Ascent power. The old dragon comes out of nowhere, breathes fire into an area and burns everything. That's been made into a building that then has that power baked into its kit. Now, what about how will we make this for Lothlorien? I had two solutions to this. One is I actually took from one of the story battles we did recently, which is instead of just the arrow volley going off, you make a flat tower, kind of similar to the Mirkwood the scouting tower you got from being on the Mirkwood special map, because of the Easter egg with Tariel. But on top of that building, you would have an elf, so it'd basically be a lone tower, but the elf doesn't do anything, it's just a scout, and then it can release the Arrowstorm ability from not too far around its radius. So it's a defensive building, but also has offensive capabilities by clearing out an entire area of enemies if they're unprepared. It gives you even more warning for it because you see the tower come up and then the volley comes down. Another theory is, instead, it makes a few archers that are stealthed in an area. And this is kind of taking inspiration from Age of the Ring with what they've done with the Athelian Garden and the spider-infested forest. Basically, it's just a small mob of single entity archers that just stay in a small area, kind of similar to the Elven Ambush from the Creator Heroes. So again, it would work for both the Dunedain and Lothlorien. They'd just be in that area. They would shoot at any nearby hostiles, but there would be like a stone in the middle that would be, or maybe just a single like elf in the middle that you could actually select, and then he would be who you arrow volley with. So if he dies, the rest of them disappear, kind of thing, and then you can't use arrow volley. Just two avenues of making this power just a little bit more unique, because I have to admit, seeing an arrow volley come out of nowhere is very terrifying for most factions in the early stages of the game, because it will just kill any unit you have. Giving your opponent a bit more time to react to something like that might not be a good thing for PvP, and sometimes in PvE, but I feel like it'd be interesting to try and play the game of chicken. Have the building built, see if the enemy will run away or try and attack it, and then just do whatever you want with the arrow volley. It just gives you so many more options to try and fake out the enemy. It's playing more mind games, which I really like, even just against PvE. But I imagine in PvP it'd be pretty fun as well. Back to Isengard again to talk about industry. Honestly, Isengard has quite a few vanilla powers that do need a bit of flashiness to them. And industry in particular, I feel like could have some really good implements to it. Firstly, the range is fine. Infecting one building at a time is absolutely fine. But only giving 300% extra resources for a limited amount of time on a pretty big cooldown when you have another power on the other side of the power tree, like Devastation, and then even better powers on the right side of the tree. This power kind of gets overlooked. So I was thinking, I've actually got 3 different avenues. Firstly, it grants some kind of discount. I don't know what, because you already have discounts on your Urukai and your upgrades. So maybe discounts on the machinery of war, since that is a pretty hefty cost, and maybe also discounts your expanded storerooms on every building that it is done on, but it can only be done on each building once. So it has like that permanent effect around it, and then it can't be used again. Other thing I could think of is just give it more money. Make it so that it has a permanent effect after it's been used that doesn't stack. So you've got incentive again to affect every single building at least once, to have like an extra 50% or 25% extra resources per tick. It makes having the resources at Isengard feel worthwhile, since that is their entire thing, is just making a bunch of money. Because their early game money making is honestly garbage. Let's not lie here. They are so hamstrung by the fact they have to spend 1,000 on just an upgrade to get their actual units, which feels a bit sad. But then my last thought was, have a unit that can be made from your resources from your settlements. That's because not settlements even, from your main base. So have like Isengard workers, a basic orc unit, dirt cheap, that can just be spammed out until the end of time. Just something to give Isengard a little bit extra back. They're a very elitist faction, and they don't have any real cheap units. Because even the Wildmen of Dunland can get a bit pricey once you start thinking about giving them torches and banners, and then you want to give them heavy armor with Wolfgar. It's just all those little different things that make Isengard very expensive in the early game. But something like Industry, just to help get something rolling, just gets either more money, a discount, or units. I think if any one of those three things, or even all of them, that would be amazing, but I doubt it. If any one of those things could be added on, that would instantly make this power a much bigger get, in my opinion anyway, for Isengard. Because I always go down the right side of the power tree with Isengard. Because if we have a quick look, I'm still just talking. We have vision, resources, pretty useless, and then you've got pretty decent area of effect. Decent area of effect that offers a lot more instant money compared to this. Summons units instantaneously, really good at keeping you in the game. Remove all leaderships that can... it's a vanilla power. And then that power... then Fire of Isengard. Love Fire of Isengard. It's definitely one of my favourite powers for just its flashiness. So yeah, that's what I feel like Industry could do to feel more unique and not vanilla. Last, but certainly not least, I want to talk about Blight. A power that is, I feel, quite controversial, saying that it is one of the most hated... I believe it is one of the most hated powers in Edain and Rise of the Witch King, because it weakens your enemies, and it doesn't just affect one building, it can affect all buildings adjacent to it. So, for example, if this smelter was to be blighted, it would also blight this smelter, and it also blight the Dark Iron Forge, making every upgrade you try to make increase its production time, which I think is really, really bad. Because that can exist, a lot of the times it is getting far too much value for a tier 1 power. It should definitely have its radius reduced to make sure it only affects one building. But more importantly, I have a more interesting solution than making it a oppressive power for an opponent. Instead, you use it on your own building. It ruins its economy for a little while, but in its place, you make some temporary summons. On a human village, you get axe throwers and spearmen. And on an orc camp, you get Gondor orcs and wolf riders. So actual incentive to build these buildings that then in turn buff the units that get made thanks to Blight. And it even gives you incentive to build an actual orc camp, because the wolf riders in the early game can just really pivot you into a victory. I think that is far more enjoyable than just dealing with Blight. Instantly, one building is shut down, it's useless. And then every time they see it again, off cooldown, it's useless again. I feel like that is just such oppression. It makes playing against Angmar so unfun. I think this would be a very interesting challenge because Angmar typically doesn't make cavalry. It doesn't know how to. So having a power that could make it so they do have cavalry would be really interesting, and maybe even have an upgrade in either the Wolf Den or the Hall of the King's Men or the Citadel even that makes these summons permanent. I know that the Edain team have already announced that in 4.7 Angmar is going to get some few tweaks here and there, mostly around the Witch King and how thralls can be summoned from other means. But I think something like this, purposefully burning down your own resource for a moment and bringing out everyone that was producing in that area just to go out and attack, I think that's something there's something very Angmarim about that. You're sacrificing something to gain something better in return, which you can say in either regard that sometimes resources are better than military, but in some cases, especially in the early game and against AI in particular, having military force can really make you think twice about what you're dealing with. Because instead of just dealing with 1 or 2 units that enter the base immediately, being like, okay, they're there, they're dead now, after a few attacks from your main troops, you've now got to worry about these extra troops that have just come out, and they're going to be dealing a lot of damage. It gives you more to think about. It's not super oppressive because there's only going to be like 1 or 2 units, and they're not going to have the longest cooldown on their things. I'm thinking just make them summons, maybe even get rid of the Thrall Masters just to say that they are purely wild troops that fight as long as they have the vigor too. And then once they've done fighting, they then just return to their camps and produce resources again. I think that's quite nice. I think that would be a really interesting take on removing the poor power that is Blight and making it something feel far more powerful and interactive. But anyway, that is all of my choices for 7 powers that I want to see an update for. I feel like all of those powers can definitely get some kind of flavor addition to make them feel less like vanilla powers, because there's so many amazing powers in this mod, and honestly some of them that could also do with an upgrade, but we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, there's still some amazing powers that the Edain team have added that make playing each faction so wild and unexpected until you get used to it so much you expect it all. But that's just mostly on me because I'm too used to it. But anyway, hope you all enjoyed this little just talk about all of this, and I hope that more of these videos will be entertaining for more viewers in the future. Farewell.